Hi everybody, my name is Maria Qadri and I'm here with the Rutgers Teaching Assistant Project to offer you 6 pro tips on how to grade lab reports. The first tip that I have for you is write the lab report yourself. The benefit of this is it lets you figure out what you're looking for, aka creating a rubric. This also may help you identify sections that your students are going to struggle with when they're writing their own lab reports. Tip number 2. Decide whether you're going to focus on structure or on content. Now, this could vary depending on what your students are in their educational process. If you're focusing on structure, you're going to emphasize making sure that the students have each of the components that you're looking for, each of the sections, and you're going to be looking for specific items within those sections. If you're emphasizing content, you may be looking for their interpretation, in which case you might put more emphasis on their abstract or their conclusion or discussion. Tip number 3, you could alternate between short lab reports and longer lab reports to save yourself a little bit of time. A formal lab report is not necessary for every lab, and so a short lab report could look like what you would see in a lab notebook. You could also create sort of a lab worksheet or a form that the students could fill out instead of having to write a formal traditional lab report. The fourth tip that I have for you today is that you could offer the students the option of submitting draft lab reports. And if I don't mean an option, you should, if you decide to do it this way, all of the students should do this. By submitting a draft lab report, you can look through them quickly and provide them specific feedback on sections or figures that they may have constructed incorrectly, interpretations that they made that aren't accurate, and language that they're using that isn't the most scientific. If this isn't possible, and then after that you would provide the students the opportunity to submit the final lab report for real grading. Now, this might not be feasible because you have so many students or so many lab reports. The alternative way to implement this tip is to require the students to peer review each other's lab report. And that could be as simple as just saying, this lab report was read by so-and-so. And then the students are getting a little bit more feedback and you don't have to spend as much time doing all the grading. Tip number 5, and this one is a very important tip, is to always award points positively. So the benefit of this is that you don't have to read through 10 or 15 lab reports to figure out, to get a sense of what the students are capturing or aren't capturing. Instead, you give them a positive point every time they hit something on your rubric or in the lab report that you wrote yourself. And then when you go to give the final grades, grading on a curve is more justifiable. You know, all of the students hit these particular points and they missed all of these other points. The last tip that I have for you is that you should always keep track of all the feedback that you're giving. If you're doing this digitally, it's very easy with something like copy and paste. This way you can give the professor and the class as a whole a sense of what errors that the students made. And it'll also help you as a method for tracking what kind of errors they're making. If you address it as a class earlier on, then you can prevent the students from repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Those are all the tips that I have for you today. Good luck grading all those lab reports.